Hello everybody. In this video we're going to take a look at how we can not just apply poses to a character but also create our own custom poses for our characters. So here I have a character that has been created in Character Creator, and I'm going to zoom out a little and we'll just take a look first at some quick ways that we can apply poses to this character. And to do so, I'm going to go to my content area here within the interface, and we'll go ahead and select this tab here, which is the Pose tab. And we'll just find some of the poses that we have available to us. So for instance, under the male category here, we have a number of different poses, such as await, casual, relaxed, and a bunch of others. Really kind of a nice way to very just quickly check out your character and see how they look in poses that obviously are a little more natural than just looking at a character in T-pose. Now, I'd just like to stress here that I'm actually working in Character Creator right now, not iClone. We can take a look at some of these other options as well that we have. We've got a bunch of other poses here that we can also quickly drag onto our character to apply. Really a good idea to check these out because you can really kind of test your character very quickly, very easily to see if everything is deforming right, to see if the character looks correct in these other poses. Again, you're not going to really get the sense of that by just looking at your character in the T-pose. I'm going to put another pose on this character here, something just very simple, a very simple standing pose. And I'm going to focus on the face so that we can take a look at some other things that we can do with our character. So you'll notice here that we also have expressions, and we can choose among these different expressions. We've got the angry stare, cool, gentle, handsome, glancing, and normal. In addition to being able to put these facial poses very quickly on the character, we do have some other options as well, which refer to the hands under the gestures. And you can see that we've got some different hand positions here. For instance, we can put the fist pose onto the character. Notice that we have the option of putting it on both hands, just the left hand or just the right hand, or we can cancel out of this operation. Let's go ahead and put it on both hands and see what we get. Now the character has his hands in a fist. If we wanted to put a different pose on one of the individual hands, of course we can do that as well. We'll put perhaps this one, this grab gentle, onto the character, but this time we'll put it on just the right hand. Now, besides those holding hand gestures, we also have some signs here that we can also put on our character. Other hand positions that have already been created that you can simply just drag and drop onto the character. Now, to show you a little bit more with the character here, I think what I'll do is put the T-pose back onto the character. And to do that, I'm simply going to come over here and select my motion template. We'll look for it, but I'm actually going to click on this motion plus. You'll notice that there is the default position, which is the T-pose, and we'll just drag and drop that onto our character, which will return the character back into this very standard, boring but functional T-pose that will allow us to more easily do some other things with this character. So let's take a look at how we can create our own custom poses from scratch. And to do so, I'm going to come over here to my Modify panel, and I'm going to switch to this second tab here. This is the Motion Pose tab. And what you'll notice is that we have a couple different options here. We've got Edit Pose, Edit Facial, and Set T-Pose. We're going to take a look at the Edit Pose, and we'll also take a look at the Edit Facial here. In fact, let's go ahead and go into Edit Pose and see how we can create our own custom poses with this character. So we get this little interface that pops up with a bunch of areas that we can select on the model for both the hands and for the body. And we got a couple different settings here that will allow us to do some different things. So let's see what we can do here. I'm going to go ahead and select the root here. And you can see that I've got this move tool now, and if I move the hip up and down, you'll see that the character responds accordingly. Of course, we can also rotate. Bring the hip back up, and we can also rotate the spine. In fact, I recommend when you play around with this to go ahead and select all the different parts, and don't just work with rotates. Remember that you can also explore the translate tool here to pose the character. I'll talk in a moment a little bit about the behavior that's happening with this tool here. Notice that I can rotate at the shoulder, we can rotate at the elbow, the wrist. But also remember that you can also move. Now notice that when I'm moving the arm, it's actually moving the entire upper torso here. We'll talk about that in just a moment because that isn't always the desired effect that you want. Let me go ahead and grab the leg here. You can see we can move the leg. This is using a technique called inverse kinematics, because it allows us to select the leg and move it, and while we do that, it's affecting the joints at the hip, the knee, and the ankle at the same time, even though we're just moving one object. So that is a technique called IK, or inverse kinematics. And in fact, you can see that we have these different IK settings here. Currently, we have it set to full body. So, as I was mentioning before, right now, if we select the arm, just as an example, and I move it, you can see that it's actually affecting the whole upper torso. But if we were to uncheck full body here and instead put on body part, and then I grab that arm and I move it, you can see that we can now move the arm without affecting that upper body there. And that can be quite convenient when you're posing your character. So you can see I can bring the arm down to the character's side, for example. Perhaps grab the other arm and bring it down as well. A couple of other settings that we can take a look at. Sometimes you might pose the character and decide that this is in fact not the direction you want to be going in which case we can click on default and it'll put the character back into its default pose. Now let's take a look at a couple other settings in here that can be quite useful. I'm going to let's see, what shall I do here? I'm going to select the full body, and I'm going to, I want you to notice what happens between with the right leg and the left leg, because I'm going to do something different to both of them. You'll notice that on the arms and on the legs, there are these little icons that look like padlocks, meaning that we can lock or unlock them. So I'm going to unlock the right leg. Remember that the left leg is still locked, and I'm going to grab the hip and move it. And what you'll notice is that now the left leg is still locked to that floor, but the right leg still moves with it. And in fact, you'll notice that in the case of the right arm, it's also locked in place right now, like the left leg. So I'm going to put this back on default. Let's just try that again, just to make sure. I'm going to go ahead and lock. In this case, let's go ahead and lock all the arms and legs, all four of them. Grab that hip, and you'll see that right now the legs and the arms are all locked. Or if we unlock the arms move with the body, but the feet are still locked. If we unlock the legs, now neither the arms nor the legs are locked. So that's very convenient when posing your character. I just clicked on the default to put them back into the standard T-pose. Now there may be times, of course, when you want to use mirroring, in which case I'm going to turn on mirror here. And now whenever I select one side, such as the right arm, and I move it, the left arm will move identically to it. When you're done mirroring, simply uncheck it. Now I think the hands are probably pretty self-explanatory. They work very similarly to the rest of the body here. I don't know if mirroring works with them or not. Let's find out. I'm going to go ahead and turn on mirroring and select one of the fingers here. And yes, in fact, it does look like we can easily mirror in here with the hands as well. Now, this could be a bit tedious because you've got a lot of different controls on the hand. So if you can get away with maybe using some of those hand positions that we looked at earlier, that might be a faster way to get the hands into the pose that you want. And then you can come in here and fine-tune it using these tools here. And I think that's in fact what I'm going to do. I'm going to come out of this edit pose temporarily and come back over here to our hand positions and just find one maybe that can work well for this character here. Let's see what we got here. I think I'll just go with something kind of natural. Oh, let's try this one, or maybe this one here. Doesn't really matter. I think I like this one. We'll put this one on the character. Apply that. I'm going to go ahead and do it to both hands, and I think that looks good. I think that looks a little bit nicer. And now if we want to go back to those hands and fine tune them, we can go back to edit pose and adjust them here quickly and easily. Now, I didn't really have anything particularly in mind when I started posing this character here, but a couple things I would keep in mind when posing a character. Remember that I put on mirroring when I started working with the character, bringing the arms down. Some of the things I might do if I were actually trying to do an effective pose is not keep everything entirely symmetrical. It might be a little bit more interesting if there's a little bit of asymmetry in your poses. As well as with the way that the character is standing here, I might choose to not have the character standing so upright like that, in which case I might just move the legs a little bit differently to try to give the character a more natural pose. Maybe even adjusting the hips a little bit so that it makes it look like the weight is not evenly distributed. Like maybe the character is putting more weight on one leg as opposed to the other. Anyway, this pose could probably use a lot more work, but that's how you can use the edit pose features in iClone to pose your character. So let's move on now to the edit facial features. And since we're going to be looking specifically at the face, I'm going to go ahead and focus on the face here. We'll go into edit facial. And first we'll take a look at the very easy things that we can do. Remember that earlier we actually took some face poses from the content tab over here to the content panel rather. I think maybe panel is more accurate description for this area here. We took some poses and we just dragged it onto the character to change the character's facial pose. However, we have more facial expressions available here in this edit facial pop-up here. We can go to expression and you'll notice that there's a number of different happy expressions, for example, which we can try out. Simply by clicking on them, you can see what works best for your character. I don't know if that exactly looks happy there. And the other thing that we can do is we can adjust the weight of these facial expressions. Currently it's set to 100. You can see that I can tone it down, bring it all the way back to 0. Or we can place it anywhere in that range that we want. And we can also click reset to bring it back to its default position. We've got happy expressions, we've got some sad expressions, angry, disgust, fear, surprise, and others. I'm going to go back to the happy ones and we'll just apply something, one of these more kind of happy expressions here. Find one that we like, one that we think is suitable for our character here. Maybe I'll just go with that one. And we can also go to the Modify tab, and here you can adjust individual parts of the character's face. For instance, we can go to the Eye tab here, and we can make the eyes blink if we want. We can individually do the left eye or the right eye. We can make the eyes wider, narrower, and so on. Notice that you also have some nose controls, mouth controls. We can increase that smile, decrease that smile. We can make the smile more asymmetrical if we want, or more symmetrical. There's a number of different things that we can do here. I'm going to reset this, however, and we'll take a look at one more feature for posing our characters' faces. So this time, what I'm going to do is go to Muscle, to the Muscle tab here. And here we can actually directly grab some of these controls on our character to further pose the face as well as the head. Let's take a look at that now. So this works very interestingly. Let me go ahead and just grab one of these controls here. You simply click on it. So right now this is the character's right eye here, or right eyelid, let's say. And you can see that if I use my left mouse button, I can interactively pose it. Now, if I grab the left lid too, notice that they are both selected now. So now if I move it, I'm moving them both at the same time. Be careful about that, because you could very easily grab lots of controls at one time and control them all at the same time, which might not be your intention. So be careful about that. And let me go back into that there. I accidentally clicked out of it. You see here, I forgot to uncheck that eye there, and I ended up working on both the mouth and on the eyelid at the same time. But this can be a really fun and intuitive way to pose your character. I keep on forgetting to uncheck the stuff I want to not affect. That's something very easy to do. So just be, again, aware of that. So there is one more feature I want to show you here in this Edit Facial, and that is these two buttons here, which are going to affect the head. So if I just put my mouse over this, it should indicate what it does. This is the head orientation, and then this one is the head tilting. Let's just take a look at what these two do. I'm going to make sure and deselect that control on the mouth there. We'll select the head orientation, and you can see that I can really kind of fine-tune the head position. If I uncheck that and then click the head tilt, you'll see how that can work with this kind of side to side of the head here. I'm going to close that, and we'll just zoom out real quick. And here is my character posed. So after you've spent a lot of time creating a custom pose for your character, maybe you want to be able to keep that pose and be able to apply it to other characters in the future. So let's take a look at how we can do that now. So I'm in my content panel, and we're still in the pose category. Now we've got these different sections here, hand or gesture rather, and we've got the face and the body and the face and body. So we want to make sure that we're in the proper tab here so that it'll be saved in the appropriate place. Otherwise we could just save the hand position or just the face position. We want to save the entire pose. So I've selected this this button here, which is the it indicates the face and body. And what I'm going to do is come over here to custom, and we're going to save this pose by clicking on this plus button here. And you'll see that this has been saved now. We will give it a name. Let's see, what shall we call it? I'm just going to call it Pose 01 until I can come up with a better name. And there it is. Now we've got a pose that we can easily apply to other characters later on if we want to. In fact, if we come back over here and take a look at some of these poses that we have available to us, we can quickly drag and drop them onto our character. But we can also come over here to our custom poses that we've created, and we can drag them onto our characters as well. And remember that while we created this pose specifically using this character, this pose is going to work on other character creator characters as well. So in a previous video, we already took a look at how we can bring our characters that we create from Character Creator into iClone. And we'll take another look at that now, but there's something I want you to notice. So we've got a character, he's in a pose, and we're going to send it to iClone. And to do so, all we need to do is go to File, Export, Send Character to iClone. We'll go ahead and send the character. And let's go check it out in iClone. So it's working. And here's our character. And you'll notice that he came in just fine. But he's back into his T-pose, which might be what we want. But what if that's not, in fact, what we want? What if we actually want to bring that pose into iClone? Let's take a look at how we can do that. So I'm going to return to Character Creator. Wrong one. Here we go. And I'm going to go back to my Edit Pose. And I'm going to set this pose as the default. Now that this pose has been set to the default, if I come over here to File, Export, Send Character to iClone, the character should go into iClone and also bring over this pose that we've just created. Let me go ahead and try that again. I'm just going to start a new scene for this. We'll try that one more time. Got our character. Make sure that this is set as the default pose for the character. Maybe I'll go ahead and save my project as well while I'm at it. We'll go ahead and export, send character to iClone. Go back over to iClone. And here's our character, and he's brought over the pose as well. So that's a way that you can pose the character in Character Creator and then bring this pose into iClone. Since we're in iClone now anyway, let's go ahead and just take a look at something very quick here as well. I'm going to go to my Avatar tab, or my Actor tab here, And what I'm going to do is something similar to what we just did in Character Creator. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this character in iClone so that I can use him in future projects. So now that I'm in my Actor tab, I'm going to go to Custom, just like we did in the Character Creator. And we're going to add this character to our custom list here. So I'll just add him. And now I'll have this character, who I'm just going to name him Joseph. I can now use this character in future projects as well. Anyway, I think that'll just about do it for this video. That is how you can pose your character in Character Creator and then use those poses later on in other projects that you might complete in iClone. I hope that this video has been informative and interesting for you, and thank you for watching.